Hi, boys and girls, lads and lassies, and welcome back to Wednesday night's movies. And tonight it's a James Bond 007, The Spy You Love Me. Exactly. Superb. A fun movie, I must admit. It's got one or two minor problems, but nothing major.
Just one or two?
Just one or two minor problems. For a Bond, it is a typical Bond movie, but it's got one or two things you go, but you just go, oh. And it still continues on, but no, there's nothing I would class as a major issue.
Yeah.
I've seen some critiques of this movie and people saying, a major problem is this. And I was watching it and I said, well, no, they don't necessarily say that was an issue or that could be an issue. Like, for instance, the missiles. I saw one of the critiques that, well, that's no work. That wouldn't work because American, British, any nuclear subs, Russians would they don't have the firing codes. They are issued with a firing code that they have to program the missiles prior to them being shooting. So him just getting the subs and the missiles wouldn't make any difference. But it didn't imply that the missiles were the ones on the submarines. It implied it was his two. He'd got the subs and he had the missiles weren't on the subs. He'd take them off.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a new firing mechanism in it? So he's either redone it, so basically taking the firing mechanism out and putting his own one in, and he's just used it for the missile and the payload. So the fact that he is loading the missiles onto the subs, so it's implying that they weren't just the ones from the subs. So to me, what the class is a glaring big issue wasn't an issue. It was a minor thing at best.
And I think with this film is that it changes the way the previous Bonds were. As in where we had Blofeld as the main villain, like trying to create world domination. Now we just got one madman who just wants to create world domination.
Yeah, and the one thing I always found silly about Bond was it's one villain trying to destroy the whole world and take it all over.
Yeah,
it's like to me there's Superman villains in a Bond movie. I always found it silly that way. I can understand they were doing something, but we're going to destroy the whole world just to get to do this. Really, to me, that's like Superman and Lex Luthor wanted to destroy the whole of California just to actually get the real estate.
Well, I'm going to say, if you look back at the previous two Roger Moore movies, is that they weren't like major villains trying to take over the world. One was just trying to like ship his drugs, and you got Scaramanga, who was just trying to be the number one assassin in the world.
Yeah.
But he also wanted to create free energy and also that, but it wasn't too highly, how can I put it, highly above what they were trying to do back in the 60s. But now it's just got kind of ridiculous, especially now. I've got no offense to the character Jaws. I've got nothing against him. He's a great character, but it's like they have to put in like a very tough henchman for Bond to go against.
Yeah, and it's the same with Oddjob.
Yeah, Oddjob was a one-off.
Yeah,
you had Red Max, was it, from Russian with Love?
Oh yeah, but they did stuff like that. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. When it was a villain trying to do something like that, it became a Superman, a super villain, like the Lex Luthor type. But when they stuck it to drugs or an assassin who's just that type of thing, when it was a smaller story, It was, but when they actually tried to do the world encompassing thing, that's when they actually went into the super villain.
And don't forget, compared, there was like a massive gap, well, not as what it was now, between The Man with the Golden Gun to The Spy Who Loved Me.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a James Bond film in between.
Yep. And Roman, no worry about being tardy. We're normally the ones early. And I saw your comment earlier about this was the first Bond movie you saw. That was Roman's. What was the first Bond movie you saw? Can you remember?
Right, the one I did see was A View to a Kill, which I vaguely remember, and that's what got me into more James Bond films.
Yeah. It was definitely, I can't remember exactly what one. I know it was a Sean Connery one. And I just can't remember what Connery one it was.
It's the same here. I have a distinct feeling it was a Connery film, not Roger Moore.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot for the life of me recall exactly which one it was, because it's been, 25, 30 films now?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely know it wasn't Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, no. Even I knew it wasn't George Lazenby. It was, he was, before I actually started watching.
Yeah,
it was a Bond one, because the reason I know it was a Bond one is because my mum loved Bond, Sean Connery as Bond. She just loved Sean Connery. She always used to say my dad looked like Sean Connery. I think my dad had a moustache and that was enough. So I know it was a Bond one because I was sitting watching it with my mum. So I just don't know what one it was. And that's the thing. It was that long ago, and I just can't remember. I'm sure it was I just got the picture of him sitting at the casino, the white outfit on, and just the way he's holding his lighter, sort of lighting from the side. It was just one of those things because my dad my mum and dad and all that used to smoke. The whole family all smoked. And it was one of my uncles used to light his flag from the side. And I think it was because of that Bond. It could have been Dr. No, because I remember the guy in Dr. No. But if that's the one where he's sitting in the casino, white tuxedo, and with his cigarette out his mouth, the name's Bond, crook, James Bond. If that's Dr. No, that'll be the one, but I can't remember exactly what one it is. I'll need to go through them all again.
Right,
I cheated and went on IMDb, but I can't say what the first one was. Yeah, Thunderball was one of them.
Well, Thunderball, Dr. No.
You only live twice?
That was the one. That was the third one he did. But the problem is, I just can't remember what one it is. I would have to watch them again and go, that's it. That's the one. But it's been a while since I've watched a Bond movie. So it has been. It's been a wee while. I've got a collection of them sitting there, but I can't remember what one it was. I've just been catching up on other things at the moment. And I think Bond will need to go on my list again. So they will.
Well, all I can say about this, you had some great casting to it.
Oh.
I know I'm going to go down the Jerry Anson road, but you had 3 people who were in it from the Jerry Anson TV shows, and Derek Meddings did the model shots,
which were superb. I must admit, the tanker with the submarines.
That was filmed in the Bahamas, the tanker and the subs, including the Atlantis.
You know why that was, don't you? It was filmed in the Bahamas.
Yeah, because of GoldenEye pre-holiday to the got his name now. His villa.
You also wanted it there for the model shots. You know why that was? It was because the sand
Yes.
The water was clearer in the sand. So with when they were doing it in a tank for the model shots, the tank was easy to do, so they didn't have to have the depth underneath it. They could have it still, the underneath still light, so they didn't need to make it a deeper tank.
Yeah.
It was all to do with the visuals on it.
Yeah. And also they've got some. I think there's a lot of innuendos in this film.
Yeah.
Especially where you had Shane Rimmer playing the submarine captain, sitting there minding his own business, and he says to is it Lieutenant? I can't remember.
Major.
Well, you've never seen the Major take a shower before.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And the guy shutting the door.
Yeah.
He basically eyes in.
Also, Roger Moore coming out with that final line at the end of the film.
Say that again?
Roger Moore coming up with that final line at the end of the film.
Just keeping the British end up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was another wee thing. The thing, the life pod.
Yeah.
It had that tail at the bottom of it.
I noticed.
How could they have had it on the ship like that?
I know. You must have cut it off.
They would have had to.
Yeah.
But it's just, and them not knowing they get hoisted on board.
Mm.
But then again, that's the typical Bond. That's the ones that are trivial because they're Bond movies. You don't care about wee things like that. Because the bit where they look up and they go, Bond! Triple X! What are you doing? Keeping the British end up, sir.
And it follows, it's like the next film, Moonraker, is like a repeat of The Spy Who Loved Me.
Uh-huh.
But it's Bond in outer space.
Yes. That was exactly, they finished a similar idea.
Yeah.
But then again, it's Bond.
But the thing is, they can't change it on the original film at the end of Spy Who Loved Me when they said, Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only.
No, but they have changed that. There's an alternate one. It's Bond will return in, what was it? It was an IMDb. There was an alternate ending. End credits, alternate versions. In the 1992 RCA video disc version of the film, fades before the end credit, omitted the title card that tells you that Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only.
Yeah.
So
that's wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah. So it was. They've basically they have changed that.
Yeah.
So there is ones where it's actually taken out, but it basically says you were For Your Eyes Only, but it was actually meant to be Moonraker. Was the next movie after it rather than For Your Eyes Only, which was the third one.
Well, the thing is with Moonraker, it's like the Jaws sequel in a way.
Yeah. And you know why it was Moonraker?
Because
was the one in between instead of For Your Eyes Only.
Yeah, Star Wars came out.
Star Wars and Indiana Jones. They were successful, so they wanted a space one, so they shoved the Moonraker in, which I must admit I like from Moonraker. Moonraker is a fun romp. It is just fun. But to me, you take Moonraker and you take The Spy Who Loved Me. The two of them could have been swapped because instead of spacesuits, they were underwater.
I know.
It would have worked. It works both ways.
Especially the how can I put it? The chase with the Lotus. He's just driving down the road, followed by a motorcycle, and the motorcycle launches a rocket at him. Doesn't work. Then Jaws is in a Ford Granada shooting down the road. That doesn't work. The helicopter shows up. That doesn't work. Then he's going to find out what's going on. Next you know, a couple of divers. That doesn't work. Then a mini submarine. That doesn't work. It's like, what's next? The kitchen sink. You just couldn't get a breather in the Lotus for 1 minute. Yeah. It was just throwing henchman after henchman.
Yeah.
But I find it part of the humor that they like you said, they're throwing the kitchen sink at him.
Yeah.
It's like first these two, then these two, then these two, then the submarine, and it's just not working. But I've always liked Q's inventions because they've been fun, even though they're definitely like plot escape devices.
Oh. Yeah. That would make your eyes water. But the one thing I did like about Bond movies, and this one was a good example of it. You had gorgeous women.
Yes.
Who were deadly and get killed off by either the goodies or the baddies. So you had the woman who got shot with one of Stromberg's goons the very first time. The second time, the helicopter pilot, the sexy assistant.
Caroline Munro.
Bond just goes...
They killed off Caroline Munro.
Yeah.
And she didn't even sleep with him.
That's what I'm saying, but it was the fact is there's this gorgeous assistant of Stromberg, and she's flying and machine gunning him and missing him, and he just goes, oh dear. Blows it to pieces. It's good that even back then they says, women could be evil, women could be strong, women could be vicious, women could die. So did they, even when they were going on about toxic masculinity and all that pish, they were showing you there's women, even, like, fair enough, you used to have the silly names, Pussy Galore.
Yes.
She was still a strong woman. It's just a ridiculous name. I mean, but what was the other one? They took the piss out of it in the Carry On Spying. Pussy Golightly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they took the piss out of it, but Bond had silly names like that as well, because even when I was younger, I thought, Pussy Galore, that is a stupid name. I was old enough to understand what it was implying.
Yeah.
But even I thought it was a stupid name. But it was Bond. You're allowed to have stupid names. Same as you got a guy with big teeth taking bites out of a shark, as if the shark would notice a wee bite like that. You know what I mean? A shark would not notice a wee bite like that. It would still be going because it's a human-sized bite. So even if he could take a bite out of it, he's taking a chunk.
Yeah.
He's not actually like a shark. Boom. That takes a bite.
Can I just say something, Ronan? You're not missing much with that film. You're not missing much.
See, if that's one of the new ones, I don't care.
No,
I've not watched any of. I watched the first Daniel Craig one, and I thought that's no Bond.
Yeah,
I don't want it to be real life, because Bond isn't about real life. So they're trying to be gritty, and it's all about in the current world. I don't want to see that. I don't care about watching that in Bond.
I don't know where the hell they're going to take it next at the moment, because Daniel Craig's Bond was its own little contained world. Unlike the previous where they weren't like their own contained, but there were like references and all this and that now and again to other previous Bonds, but it wasn't too heavily, like one entire saga.
I always reckon that they were doing Doctor Who, just ignoring the fact they were changing. As far as I was concerned, either they were all completely separate entities, or that was the same character all the way through. Do they just have to be played by different actors every so often?
Yeah.
Do you know how? Well, I've already had this discussion with Cockney Spock.
Mm-hmm.
my attitude is James Bond 007. 007 is his code name.
Yep.
Wrong. James Bond 007 is his code name. So everybody who takes on the James Bond 007 just adds to the history. It is a cover identity. So when you've been given that cover identity, you're given a file.
Yeah.
This is your cover identity. So it is new people each time, but it's not like everybody's here's you. You're now 007. You're now 007. You're now 007 because the last one died. So you're now Bob Smith 007. You're now Janet Weaver 007.
Yeah.
So James Bond 007 is the full code name, and you're given a category.
It's like what David Niven stated in Casino Royale, the original.
No, that was a good.
Yes.
Casino Royale.
He came out with the line, right, Miss Moneypenny, from now on, every agent is now known as James Bond.
Yeah.
The enemy.
But to me, it was a case of people were saying, but Pierce Bronson, what was it? Who was the one who got married? Was it Pierce Bronson's Bond?
No, that was George Lazenby.
George Lazenby's Bond got married, and then Pierce Bronson's Bond is next time he was in Moscow or whatever, laid flowers at the grave. And to me, that was him.
Yeah, but Roger Moore did that.
Was it Roger Moore then?
Yeah.
So he laid the thing at his wife's grave, and we did discussion that, well, if he's meant to be the same Bond, that's why. And I says, no, it is part of his cover, because Bond's cover gets updated every time he goes on a mission or something significant happens. So it's part of his mission profile. So when you're given the James Bond 007, you're given a part, this is your history, just so you're continuing with the cover identity.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can. It's different. I think the thing is, in the books, it's obviously the same guy.
Yes, of course.
So you have to. But I mean, the other thing is, I take your point, but I see James Bond as the character's name is James Bond. But one of the things I think the thing interestingly for me that actually, if I think about it, splits more than anything else, puts the Daniel Craig series in a universe of its own, almost, if you like.
Yeah, it's like anything done in the last 7 years, I would say.
No. I mean, it's not even even more so than the fact that we see him do his kills and now earn the 00 rank.
Yeah,
it's the fact when it's when Judi Dench's M turned around and says USAS types are all the same. Bond was not a special forces soldier.
No, he was.
James Bond was a Royal Naval Intelligence Commander.
Yeah,
he's Commander James Bond RN.
Yeah,
and that's what he's in all those films. So you make him a squaddy. Okay, so that is definitely reboot. That I think for me was definitely reboot. The fact you got the same
Mr. Hyde, license to kill, license to throw.
Yeah, but then the author, I've got his name, changed.
Ian Fleming.
Yeah, Ian Fleming changed it during the 60s when Sean Connery was.
Yeah, because he made him more like Sean Connery.
Yeah.
But initially, he was basically had an idea of what he wanted it to be, what he wanted his Bond to be, and he changed.
Yep, a lot of the books were written after the series started, and interesting. In fact, the one thing that you wouldn't know. I mean, I think For Your Eyes Only is one of the few. The Spy Who Loved Me is one of the few that I've actually read of the Fleming novels, and it's got you might almost say that The Spy Who Loved Me is the blink or the turn left of James Bond, in that the Bond isn't even in it for about 2/3 of the book. The book is told from the perspective of the girl. Bond is the spy who loved me. The me in question, the narrator of the book, is the girl, and Bond turns up about halfway through the book.
Whereas in the movie, they changed it. Whereas
of course, in the movie, they have to.
Bond's perspective in The Spy Who Loved Me was the Russian girl.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that obviously, you know, it's some of the Doctor Who did occasionally, but that so very few other people have done, where you have your main lead isn't in it. I mean, apart from the fact that Chimble managed to do an entire fucking era of Doctor Who without the Doctor appearing, it's beside the point. But you know, they've done that. Very rarely will you do that. And you'll have an entire film, for example, where the main guy's only in it half the time.
Uh-huh.
You know? Whereas the book was, I think the book was written from the point of view of the girl that he comes across and saves.
Yeah. But it's typical they can't have that.
But I mean, the thing is that I mean, it's why I think that because he's always Commander Bond, because he's on secondment from the Royal Navy.
Yeah. And he's always been. The fact that they changed that's why I don't like the new stuff, because somebody's turned around and says, no, we want to make it gritty. He wouldn't come from the Royal Navy. He would be a SAS type. So let's make him an SAS type. Well,
I wouldn't even buy that. But for me, Bond is someone with charisma, charm, the whole package and everything, and also lethal training so that he can kill. But let's not talk about his, shall we say, martial arts skills in The Spy Who Loved Me. So some of those combat scenes are just silly. But James Bond is someone is supposed to be roughing it with the roughnecks.
Yeah.
And 5 minutes later be able to talk to Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah. Do you know what they should have done if they wanted to make him an SAS type? Make him an SBS type.
Yeah, exactly.
The original Special Forces, Special Boat.
Yeah.
Because they were the original before the SAS. It was the SBS during the Second World War. It's when it started, the SBS.
The SBS was the Special Boat Squadron. The SAS was the Special Air Service. I'm more to the point. The SBS were never carried on after the end of the war. They didn't have a 5-year gap.
Yeah,
but I mean, the thing is,
the SBS and the SES, yes, SES has the skill sets, etc. But the special units behind enemy lines and whatever it was during World War II, contained a lot of sappers. They're known as sappers, but basically they were engineers, so they knew exactly we only need one hand grenade. We place it on that beam under this bridge at that junction, and all of it will come down.
Engineers.
Yes, but what I'm saying is the specially trained ones were all SBS, because they were the ones that were going ashore, getting the stuff for, and that's where that type of training started at the beginning of the Second World War. So SBS were the one, but that's what I'm saying. Instead of making them an SAS soldier, and the new ones, they could have made them SBS. He would have still been naval.
One of the biggest commando raids, usually, and if you talk to someone like Rambling Canuck and the Canadian brothers who've an interest in this, will tell you massive cock up was Dieppe. Dieppe was a massive, and Dieppe on the on the ship standing offshore was one Commander Ian Fleming, because Fleming, if I remember right, Dieppe was Fleming's idea, or he was closely involved in the Dieppe planning. He, as you say, he was closely involved with the commandos. There are I've got a book about the not the commandos per se, but certain about the World War II, the guys who went in doing all this, stealing tech and the rest of it. And the title of the book is Ian Fleming's Commandos, because that was his idea.
Yeah,
you know.
but
So,
they say it was Dieppe that caused the war to be shortened, because the Germans were so convinced that's the type of raids they were going to get.
Well, there's also the argument that because the Dieppe disaster, lessons learned from that made Normandy a success.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying, and it also went the other way, whereas the Germans were so overconfident that that's the type of things that were going to happen. They didn't think Britain or the Americans would have had the skill set after that. They would have just been demoralised, and that's the type of things they're going to get if they get any more raids like that. And thing is, but it's just that's why it annoys me with the newer stuff, because they change who Bond is. So to me, it's a complete change. It is like a lot of stuff they're doing now. They want to change it that much that it suddenly becomes unrecognisable as the original. Star Trek, to me, all new Star Trek is in the alternate timeline, the one that they created in the movie. So that, to me, everything now is that. So it's completely separate from the Enterprise, Voyager, Next Generation, the original series, even the animated series. It's completely separated. Doctor Who, as soon as they introduced the alternate reality with the Cyberdyne Cybermen, that to me is an alternate reality, because they've told you these are from an alternate reality. Well, that is the reality they're in. So to me, all the new stuff is separate from the current, the classics.
I'm going to bring something up about this film, The Spy Who Loved Me.
Wait a minute first. Roman asked, has anybody seen Fleming, the man who would be Bond?
I'm going to give that a watch.
I need to find it and give it a watch.
I think it is. Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's because I think if it's the one I think it is, it also guest stars, or the female lead. One of the female leads is the actress that played Irene Adler in Sherlock. And I forget the lady's name.
Yeah.
If it's the film I think it is, yeah.
Well, can I come out with an interesting fact?
Yep. Yes, it was only because I saw that. I didn't want it to go too high up before we actually mentioned it.
The thing is, the film The Spy Who Loved Me is the first film not to be produced by Harry Saltzman, because he sold his half to Cubby Broccoli. That's where I think it changed. Cubby Broccoli took over the whole franchise from then on. Harry Saltzman left the entire Bond franchise, and I think that's why The Spy Who Loved Me totally took the ship, changed.
It did. It became a bit more tongue-in-cheek.
Yes.
Became a bit more tongue-in-cheek. They went away from the every man wants to be him, every woman wants to screw him attitude to be more, yes, every lady wants to bed Bond, but every man just finds him humorous and a good laugh, not want to be him, just wants to be his friend rather than be him. Whereas before that, it was ultra-masculine. The females were ultra-feminine, and it was literally that was the idea of it. And I think, yes, you're right. It did change it slightly to be more tongue-in-cheek. Christ almighty, you look at the Roger Moore one when they did the jump, and they were in America, and you had the American couple, the guy always chewing his tobacco with his cowboy hat on and watching him jumping over the river. Well, I'll be and all that, and it's just been a case of let's put an American cowboy, older, fatter guy in there just to actually.
Here's another fun fact to tell you: Jerry Anderson did provide a script treatment for the film.
Didn't he? Wow.
But it was supposed to be Moonraker. It does matter. It was just like they both pretty much the same movie.
Well, as I said, it was basically they wanted it in space, so they didn't really change much. They just basically took it out to sea and put it in, so that way they could still have people in outfits. Instead of scuba gear, it was spacesuits. Instead of submarines, it was spaceships, and it was that type of thing.
And another thing is, this film did not contain any elements from the novel's plot at all. They just used
it had one element. James Bond was in it.
Yeah, but they just used the title, but the rest of it, nah.
Yeah, I must admit, Roman's right. I wanted that Lotus. I wanted it as a submarine. I didn't care if it had wheels. I just wanted it. And it's the type of thing I always said is, see if I ever win enough money, I'm getting one of them made. Just so I get out underwater. It may only go underwater for about 10 minutes. I'll do it.
But did you know that the underwater model of the Lotus wasn't the same size as the car in real life?
It was.
No, not according to them. It wasn't. It was a little bit smaller because they had to fit all the gadgets in it.
Yeah.
That's why the windows were covered mostly through the entire model.
But either way, I think it just looks cool.
Oh yeah.
It was one of the coolest things. I must admit, I wanted one. Never managed to get one as I was a kid growing up, but I wanted one.
I've got to say that they made use of the Pinewood Studio sets, especially what is it? The not Lair, is it? Colin, can you name the words?
For what?
Inside the oil tanker. It's not
the dock. The dock.
Yeah, they make the entire use of the Pinewood Studio set to get that.
Yeah, you could see it just with the amount of people they had in the gantries and stuff like that. Yeah,
and apparently they did run out of lights, so they had to make use of the lights they had.
Yeah. And it just goes to show the amount of money put forward for this movie. Nothing to do with the size of the sets or the models or whatever. The number of people they had in that battle, that scene where all the troops are fighting each other. There was loads of them. It was such a big set. They were basically, you could see them away in the background fighting each other. They were just so that many extras. It just goes to show how much money they threw at it.
And back then, it was made for 13.5 million.
Yeah,
but it did very well at the box office.
And I'm not surprised because it was a fun movie.
Yeah,
you had action, you had suspense. You had sexy women, and you had James Bond being James Bond.
And I found the villain completely boring.
Oh no, the main villain, yes, boring. But you had Joyce.
I know.
You had big set pieces. The battle scene in the inside of the tanker, tanker blowing up. Even the tanker, the models and stuff like that. The submarines.
Compare 13.5 million to the next film where it was made for 34 million. So it was one step up.
And you can guarantee that 34 million was all about effects.
Yeah.
Jaws was basically, I think he was funnier in Moonraker. And I think it's because of the wee girl, the woman, blonde hair.
Especially when that music kicked in. When she rescued him from the debris.
But it's that type of thing. It's just But it's the same idea. It became more light-hearted, even with your villain. You imagine Jaws in an earlier Sean Connery movie. Mm-hmm. You imagine they have had that Jaws as that type? Would have been biting people to death? Nah. Yeah. Nah. They wouldn't have just been getting in like a vampire and suddenly he's got no blood all over him. He would have maybe been fighting, and if we were fighting with him, not just holding him and biting him.
And I the thing is, using his teeth Bond fired straight at him, and he only hit the teeth. You should have just shot him in the top of the head and got over and done with that.
Centre mass.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you imagine Jaws in an earlier movie. The only time he would have been using his teeth to kill someone is when they were struggling together.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get in. He would have just. He wouldn't have been holding people as if he's a vampire. Mm. And then when he bites them, he just basically stands up. There's no blood, nothing. Yeah.
I did like that scene where George is trying to go after Bond, but he doesn't realise there's an industrial magnet over his head.
Uh-huh.
Doing.
Now, why would you have an industrial magnet in that room?
I know.
Because anything you need the industrial magnet to do, you would have to bring it down in the lifts so it's small enough.
Now, the stunt guy really biting into whatever was holding him for that prop. You got to hand it to him.
I'm just like Ian says, The Spy Who Loved Me is one of the best Bond movies ever made. It's definitely one of the funnest ones. I think Sean Connery did one of the best movies. Jane Seymour is solitary and half of that. I quite agree with that call. But that's what I'm saying. This movie, as you said, it was a turning point. It became more tongue-in-cheek. And it did bring forward less serious stories. Because as I said, it was almost like a Superman villain instead of a Bond villain. But it did make it more entertaining. It got gradually less entertaining because that is okay for a one-off.
That's why for Your Eyes Only, they had to tone it down a bit. Because I think Moonraker was too over the top. But after that, they had to tone it down for Your Eyes Only. So it wasn't like the big major villain at the end. And I like For Your Eyes Only, especially at the end for the final battle, and it's on top of that where the monastery is. And it wasn't too over the top, was it?
Yeah.
And then after that, it was, it was just on a level.
Yeah.
So during the late 70s, it was at a high peak, and then.
Yeah, I think it was because they changed it. I think if they made The Spy Who Loved Me a bit more serious, it wouldn't have been as popular. I think it was just at that point where the change was needed, but they tried to continue on that route. That's when they should have actually made it a bit more serious after that, rather than trying to make it a bit more silly. They went up, they went the wrong way, I think. They initially made it more, not silly, more humorous. And instead of making it serious with a bit of humour in it, they went more.
That's why they didn't have Harry Saltzman around, because with Harry Saltzman, he would have kept it on the level of what Bond was supposed to be Bond.
Yes, but he would have been made more serious based on the previous ones to that. That's what I'm saying. Whereas this one started the hill of a bit of humour into it. Yeah. And I think they went the wrong way and just added more and more humour. That's why it seemed to go downhill, because the one-liners were more silly.
Well, it is a question. Would The Spy Who Loved Me work today, if not as with Daniel Craig's Bond? If they made it today, would it have worked?
No. I don't. A simple fact is I'm saying no is because the type of humour they would have put in now, would be goofy humour. It would be fat. It would, believe it or not, to me, it would go back the way. It would be fart jokes and stupid things like that because people have not got the intelligence to put in smart humour.
Jaws would have been a female.
Jaws would have been bloody trans.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
No, Jaws would have been a small person with big teeth. It would be no, but it doesn't matter.
Oh, no,
female, trans, whatever. I'm just saying it would have been small. There would no way that towering, somebody that towering would have been given the teeth because his height would have been the thing. They wouldn't have cared about anything else. And the Jaws part would have been given to someone who's less intimidating. So here's teeth, metal teeth, that'll make you intimidating. Jaws don't need the teeth to be intimidating. If you can stand next to him and you go, oh dear.
Oh, you just gave me an image now of Nick Nack with big teeth. Of Jaws' teeth.
Mm-hmm. But you think about it, what they would do now. Because they would see Jaws and go, oh, he's intimidating enough, he doesn't need anything else. That was why the teeth, when he first smiled, you went, oh my God. Because it was intimidating. Look at his size.
It added a bit of extra, but Richard Kiel, tall already on his own, but they did use a little bit of cheeky camera tricks there because Roger Moore wasn't a short person at all. But if you remember the, was it the Volkswagen minivan or whatever it is they're trying to escape in?
Yeah.
Roger Moore standing next to it. His head doesn't even reach the roof of the car. Mm-hmm. And Richard Kiel, Jaws, when he gets out of it, he's standing at least a head higher above. So you're giving him even more.
How the hell?
I don't know, gigantism or whatever you want to call it, but you're definitely giving him that he's a big guy.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. The very first time, you imagine, go back to the first time you saw that and you saw him walking in, you go, oh my God, look at that. Is that not intimidating? Then he smiles and you go, oh, fuck.
you had, what was it? You had the short bald man.
Yeah, who
walks in, Shandor.
And he was built like a brick shit house already.
And you had Jaws who walks in and you hear, Shandor, we want you to accompany Jaws. You think Jaws was the psychic to Shandor?
Yeah, but it was the fact is when you saw Jaws walk in and you see how tall he is and intimidating, you go, wow. Because I remember first seeing it, the very first time I saw it, it was a case of, my God, look at the size of him. And then he grinned. And I thought, fucking hell.
It's such an iconic thing. This is a lot that came out from Bond. And I hate to admit it, I like Bond films, but you remember the Chinese guy that takes off his bowler hat?
Odd Job.
Yep, and just whiz it against like a marble statue, and poof, he decapitates the marble statue. That's got to be a really serious bowler hat that he's wearing.
Yeah.
But no, do you know what, the best joke I heard about that? It was on, remember Goodnight Sweetheart with Nicholas Lyndhurst? Mm-hmm. He goes back in time to the Second World War, the comedy about him travelling in time.
Yeah.
And he took his pal back with him, and his pal was using James Bond to say, I'm a secret agent. And he's obviously been telling this girl he's trying to impress. And she turns around and says, Tell my father about those two villains, you know, Oddfelt and Blow. Now, never mind, that's enough. It was just a case, never mind, that's enough. It basically, they cut it off, but you knew exactly what you'd been telling. Oddfelt and Blow. And I was killing myself when I heard that one. And it's every time I hear Odd Job, I just think, and Goodnight Sweetheart. But look at that's what I'm saying. Even though the camera trickery, he was still a foot taller.
I know.
Yeah, but the camera trickery is even adding more to it. It's kind of like what Peter Jackson did really well with Lord of the Rings. Was introducing Gandalf to the hobbits.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, Elijah Wood isn't a tall person, but they managed to shrink him significantly against Ian McKellen.
They did it in Harry Potter as well with Hagrid.
Yeah. But this is
Robbie
what I
Fontaine
miss.
is not a big guy, but if they just filmed it in a particular way, it just gives that impression. But the good thing with Gandalf,
that's the Hollywood magic I'm missing.
Yes, you think about it with Gandalf, a lot of that. Yes, they did some CGI effects to shrink and increase the size, but a lot of it is so when they were
actually a correction point there, it wasn't CGI. No, it was actually physical camera trick.
No, they did. Let me finish. I says they did a couple of bits where they had to have them side by side, and that was the bits they did. But you look at it when they were riding away, they had kids playing those parts and dressed up, so you saw Ian McKellen sitting next to Frodo, but it was a kid playing from the back. And then when they were doing the two of them talking, they had them standing far enough away that they could do the camera angle. It made them look small. But they did do a couple of times when they had to have them sort of stand beside each other.
There's definitely the whole bag.
Yeah,
but it is again the whole bag of Hollywood magic. Sometimes it was actually real camera stuff. So like when he's jumping on the cart when Gandalf is coming in, that is actually Elijah Wood and Ian McKellen. There is no stand-in, there is no CGI, but then you have them riding off on horses. So I think it is Took or the other guy. That is when there is a stand-in, whether it's a kid or a person that has had a little bit of a vertical challenge with his DNA.
Mm-hmm.
A very short person against just the normal dressed.
Yeah.
But then there has been other places where they just had to go in and it's like, we can't do this with physical stuff. We have to go for a computer to make this happen. And I don't mind that, because if we go all the way back to this, The Spy Who Loved Me came out the same year as Star Wars: A New Hope, didn't it? 77. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where if you play it right and know how to capture it on the camera, you can do just wondrous things for it. And I've always liked a saying that designer people have, which is abbreviated GIGO. GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out. And the better the garbage you have coming in, obviously you still have to take away stuff, so you do have less than the stuff that is coming in. Yep. But Ian, if you have low grade quality, you have nothing.
Ian, the link's in Twitter.
Yeah, do come join. But I wish I got to see more films forgetting about the computer CGI.
See, that's why
not because it's not useful, but I love to see more practical effects, or just, hey, I know how to actually use a camera to tweak an angle so it looks like a person is really tall and another person is really short, or stuff like that. Just those simple tricks bring me in to your reality. And something that with The Spy Who Loved Me, I would have believed this as a spy novel. Maybe not as a real spy novel, but I would have believed it.
Yeah.
I would have believed as a spy novel.
Mm-hmm. Hello, everybody.
Hey,
Ian.
How you doing, guys? All right?
Yep.
Just a little correction here. There was no trickery used for Richard and Roger. If you look at the fight in the train, you can see how tall Richard Kiel is.
With a hand.
Yeah, compared to Roger. Roger was, I mean, we're talking. I mean, Richard was 7 and a bit tall, and Roger was 6.
7'2", wasn't he?
Yeah, something like that.
How the hell
No,
did
but we
Richard-
have that. We have the same in The Princess Bride. Andre, the friendly giant. I mean,
Yeah,
it's in his name. He's a giant.
Okay, right. So there's one trickery that they did do in the film that doesn't involve Richard and Roger, and it involves the stuntman. I can't remember the name of the stuntman, but he's a very famous stuntman. And he doubled. He's like 5'7" or 5'8", and he doubled for Richard Kiel twice in the film.
You mean Richard Kiel was double him?
No, he doubled. Yeah, he doubled for Richard Kiel. This is a fact.
Imagine that job interview. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a world famous stuntman. I can do most jobs. Oh yeah, you're gonna play a 7'5" guy.
No, but he's a very famous stunt guy. I can't remember his name. Somebody should look it up. But anyway, he was the one that did the when Roger Moore kicks him through the window of the train. He did that stunt going through the window.
Yeah,
and he also walked on top of the plank when they were in Egypt. And he said the secret to doubling someone that's twice your size is to study the way they walk and study the way they move. So when you see that shot where Jaws is walking on top of the plank in Egypt, that is the stunt guy, because he studied the way Richard Kiel walked, and it's such a far away shot. You're convinced that's Richard Kiel.
Yeah, you couldn't
really
tell it. It definitely looks like him because the mannerisms and everything, and that's the hardest job stunt actors have. They have to learn the mannerisms, the movement, the way the jaws move when they speak. They necessarily don't do the speaking or get like a front on, but they get kind of like a behind.
Martin
like
Gray.
You still see the jaw moving. So they have to memorize and be able to mimic all of that. And it's a really impressive art.
I think it was the same guy that did Raiders of the Lost Ark who did the stunts for Sean. I can't remember his name. He's very famous though. Once you hear his name, you know who he is.
The guy that doubled for Roger as well as Richard was Martin Grace.
Martin Grace.
Uh-huh.
I don't think it was him that did those two bits. It was what was his name? I'll have to look it up.
He was a stunt double for that. I'm just
he wasn't. He didn't do that stunt in the train though, nor did he do the stunt in Egypt. God, what's his name? I can see his face and everything.
There's about 40 stunt names.
Yeah, but there's one famous one.
Roger Becker.
No, that's not him.
Bob Simmons.
Bob Simmons.
The action arranger he was classed as on the movie.
Yeah, Bob Simmons. Bob Simmons did the bit where he smashes through the window in the train, and he also did the bit in Egypt. As Bob Simmons is a very famous stunt guy, he said the way to double people is to watch the way they walk and the mannerisms of where they hang their shoulders and everything. And he's very famous. I think he worked on Raiders. He's worked on a load of movie. Bob Simmons. He's a very good stunt guy.
See, but that bit you're talking about in Egypt when he's walking in the background. Yeah. Do you know, I thought that was dubbed in, if you know what I mean, like the not green screened, but it was basically just added in like the old Ray Harryhausen. It was sort of
a false perspective you're talking about.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought it was, because
it wasn't.
I thought, there's no way on earth he's actually up there, because
he's there.
It looked like him walking, and there's no way on earth he's up there walking, because there's no way. It was a false perspective on it. They'd actually just put in to make it look as if he'd been walking across in the distance, because it looked like him.
In those days, right, the stunt people really did have to earn their money. And believe you me, he did do that stunt. And as I said, in today, you got CGI, you know, and it's crazy what they can.
Sometimes in the past, you had doubles that they not only didn't look like the people, but they actually got their faces seen.
Yeah,
Star Trek. The William Shatner fight, where the guy actually didn't look anything like him, and you see his face and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I must admit that I did think that was him doing that walk, and I thought they'd actually it was false perspective. I thought he'd actually done it, and they just put it higher up to make it look as if he'd actually walked across it. Just goes to show he did such a good job. I actually thought it was him.
I'm looking at this down one. Bob Simmons, the son. Well, He appears to have done almost every Alistair McLean movie. Every other film seems to be with either a Bond movie or Roger Moore.
But Roger was quite a man of age, especially when he was doing Spy Love Me and Live and Let Die, wasn't he? He was like one of the oldest, wasn't he?
Was he something like 56 or something like that? Or was he?
I don't know how old he was.
George was in his
late 50s when he did View to a Kill.
Yeah, I know he was way over the top on View to a Kill, wasn't he? He knew when to start.
In 77. So when was Roger Moore born?
Let's have a quick
look. He was born in 27. So 50 he was. So he was 50 when this came out. So he's probably when he was filming it.
I love this film though. I really do.
It is a fun movie. That's what I'm saying. This one, before that, the Sean Connery ones were a bit more serious. You did have it was ultra masculine, the ultra feminine. This one, they had a bit of humour in it, which just seemed to be just perfect.
And also,
we'll have to give a bit of credit because the guy that's from the latest film that I thoroughly enjoyed, Boss Level, Frank Grillo, who plays the main character.
Yeah,
he's in late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah, he's still fit.
Yeah,
and it's like, wow, this guy should have had a career 30 years ago.
Well, the thing is, though, you know, he's lucky that he's being noticed now. You know, I mean, he's been in a ton of movies, but I think it was because of the Marvel films that he got noticed. The same thing with the guy who plays Punisher as well. He's been around the block for a long time, and because of the Marvel movies,
he's from Walking Dead and everything, and he does a grumpy middle-aged, well, not even middle-aged, a grumpy male character. It's like, please leave me alone. And he does have that old, what's it called? Politeness. Whereas I would go just, please, beep. Whereas he's going, it's like, yeah, I'm not a hipster. Go away.
I think he's got famous parents or something. I think he has. I'm not really sure. The guy who plays Punisher.
Frank really.
Oh, Fred Ward. That's it. Fred Ward's his dad.
He
looks like Fred Ward.
Yeah, monster himself.
Fred Ward, who played
Tremors.
Yeah, Tremors. Yeah, so he definitely looks a bit like him, doesn't he? He looks like him a lot.
Yeah, he does.
So there you go.
You believe how many times you trip somebody up when you say that. Next time, if somebody mentions like Fred Ward, say, "What you mean, Herman Munster?" It's because it's the names. Because it was he's thinking. You're thinking these names just disappeared now. Oh, Fred.
Who's that?
Herman.
Oh, Fred. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Herman Munster.
Herman Munster, but he's Fred. Oh God, what's his
I can't remember. Fred Murray. I can't remember.
No, it's no Murray. But it's basically, it's amazing how many times I've catch somebody with that one, and it's you caught me.
But even the stunt in the beginning of Spy Love Me, that guy got paid a crap load of money to do that parachute jump.
Fred Gwynn.
Fred Gwynn.
Oh, the ski jump and everything.
It's amazing.
But that I will say the intro to this one is one of the loveliest homages to.
Love it.
You are going to watch James Bond 007.
Yeah.
And he's just skied down, what is it, a mountain or whatever it is, and jumped down, and he's deploying a parachute, and it's the British flag.
Yeah.
Do you know that? Did you see the silly? The class it as a goof, and I'm sitting there thinking, really? When James Bond left it wasn't a cottage. What was it? The cabin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The straps on his rucksack just looked like normal straps. They weren't parachute straps. I'm thinking, really? That's the criticism you got of that scene. Consider somebody skied off a mountain, took off their skis, and then deployed a parachute, and you're criticizing it because it didn't look like parachute.
But I love that they kept that part in of the whole stunt thing. So they're filming him falling down after having jumped off, and you can see him just go, it's like, ah, crap, it's not coming off. But it's like, I have to pull it off. You can see that he's actually struggling. It's not a smooth stunt.
They had multiple cameras on that shot, and they only used one shot because they didn't want to interrupt the fall. So they had I think about 6 cameras, 7 cameras on that jump alone, but they just chose one shot.
See, a lot of places, and a lot of people do it. Like you look at Jackie Chan when he's doing a big stunt. There's multiple cameras, but he'll use one camera if he can get away with it, because it's always more impressive if you do not cut that film at all. And
I remember the Rumble in Bronx with Jackie Chan, where he's jumping onto the, what's it called, the hovercraft.
The hovercraft,
and he breaks his leg. But the following sequence is that he's supposed to be just on his feet, water skiing behind it, and he just goes like, just plaster me up and just put like a sock on it that looks like a shoe.
I love the line. I love the line in Spy Love Me when she says, "But James, I need you," and he goes, "So does England." That's such a great line.
And then we were saying earlier, Ian, is this movie, you look at it, right? Earlier movies did it as well, but you look at this movie, you've got females who were not very nice, females who were evil, females who got killed by the good guys and the bad guys. So how did the helicopter pilot, she looked gorgeous and she was quite happy to machine gun him, and then
I will say I love the lady that does the helicopter scene.
Marilyn Monroe.
Yes. But Barbara Bach, whatever his name is, that is actually playing Triple X. She's on par, and the film makes no secret that she's on par with James Bond's skill sets. She's just as good as he is. She's just as deadly as he is. And this is a film that came out in 1977. No, there's never been a strong female character that can hold their own against a male superhero, villain, whatever angle you actually want to portray how this angle is, because it does have complex matters in it, but because it's played so cheeky, they do play off on the whole East versus West.
The Russians versus the British. And the thing,
exactly. And they do it so effortlessly.
The thing is, though,
have to build up. They just deliver a punchline, and you sit
A lot of people say that Spy Love Me is goofy, but it isn't. If you look at it very carefully, there's some really good serious moments in that film. Especially the fight in the train and the bit where there's a special bit in it where will never leaves my mind. You remember the bit where they had to meet in Istanbul, and he's near the bar, and he says to her all the details about her, blah 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 blah, and then she goes back to him and says James Bond, and then she mentions his wife. And then he goes, and then he stops. He says, he basically stops her there. Do you know what I mean? So that kind of affected him. That's a really good bit in a film that a lot of people say is.
With this one, there was humor in it. I think the movies after that, they started going down the goofier humor.
Moonraker, they took it too far. But then you had you had Three Eyes Only after that, didn't you? So at the end of this film, it says "For Eyes Only," but obviously because of Star Wars, they made Moonraker. So
Well, I will say you're spot on there, and it is. Yes, it has goofy moments, but when you really look into that goofy part, it has anchors in reality. Yes, they're trying to be, what's it called, be brevity or whatever it's called. being very light-hearted about the serious topic, but every now and then the joke goes too far, and both sides equally say, here but no further.
Yeah.
It is like, is it acceptable to joke to this point, but if you go that part, no.
I'm sure I've got a vague memory Ian's just triggered. I'm thinking, I thought at first it was Basil and Bond, but I don't think so.
Russ Abbott.
Someone was particularly taking a mick out of that scene, and unless because I haven't actually seen this film in a while, unless it is that scene, but someone taking a mick out of that scene when they're talking, and the male goes on, the female character comes back, and the male character goes, "Wow, you really do know all about me." Well, I don't know if it was from that, but I've got a feeling it wasn't a Bond. It was something that was deliberately done as
could that not have been the Carry On Spying, the Barbara Windsor one, where she had the photographic memory?
It might have been around that, but in this particular one, The Spy Who Loved Me, the playing or like the cat and mouse game. How much do you know? How much do I know? How much do you know? How much do I know? They have a very peculiar kind of dance, not trying to give their hand away, but also giving the clue. Yes, I know you had a wife. Yes, I know that about you. Yes, I know that about you. I know that about you. It's kind of like a top trumps game, whatever you want to call it.
See, that part brings us back to the part I was talking about 007 James Bond being a code name. It's not just 007's his code name, and he's called James Bond. We were talking about this earlier, and basically, how would you class each of the different actors playing James Bond? Some people are saying it's just they don't actually make reference as if there were other characters. They're all meant to be the same person, and it's just played by different characters.
No, they are.
Yeah, I know, but you're getting people who'll put the headcanon around it to make it make sense.
Well, there's people are stupid.
I consider James Bond as kind of a Doctor Who. Because the series is going... No. Forgive me a little bit here. Give me a little bit of headspace, so to speak. The show is going on for such a long time. I mean, imagine if Roger Moore, if he was still alive, or Sean Connery was still alive, playing James Bond today. A 90-year-old person trying to punch a flower.
If he's a Doctor Who type, then they've got an in-canon explanation why he changes.
Yeah.
Whereas in James Bond, I do, because we had this discussion on the Cockney Sports channel. My in-canon explanation is it's a code, and each person, it's a code identity. So when somebody becomes the new James Bond 007, this is your past. You have to make, hence the reason why when she's talking about his wife, when he gets that part, it's a case of no more, because that is what, and he doesn't want to make a mistake and say something it's not quite right.
That was where I was gonna go, because although I see it closer to Doctor Who because I know more about Doctor Who than I know about World War II history. So now this is the place where Colin is going to jump down my throat and say, no, that was absolutely not correct. But if I remember my history teachings from the 90s when I was in school and studied history, during World War II, there was a commando force or a sapper force or an SBS or whatever they were called. And apparently their leader was called Simon. And today, in this modern day, we have a game called Simon Says. Simon Say.
Simon Says.
And this is something, because he did get killed early on, but his unit carried on spraying on walls, Simon Says, and a building exploded. A munition depot was completely wiped out. I see James Bond closer to that. The original James Bond died, but someone stepped into his shoes.
That basically doesn't make any sense at all. If these people are multiple and different characters, their name wouldn't be James Bond.
No, but
so what is the chances of every guy that takes over named James Bond?
That's what
it's a cover identity. It's carrying on the Demento.
It works that the different James Bonds have a different personality.
And what about his wife? What about when Roger Moore gets upset when his wife is mentioned?
One of them he got married and his wife died. So as part of the cover identity, that's included.
Oh,
whereas
God,
if he's
no.
retired,
that sounds really silly.
I know, but you think about it, it works as it basically explains why there's a different character.
No, it doesn't.
So what the same character, mate? Headcanon, we all know a movie, the guy can play different people can play the same movie. Whereas you look at it now, or that actor dies, so we need to kill that character off.
No, I know.
Somebody else in it. We are all aware, but I'm saying is when people are actually talking about it, you can actually give it an in franchise reason for the different characters.
Exactly. But I'll throw another bone on the pile or another log onto the fire. What if it was Roger Moore's era wife?
It wasn't.
That was the one that got killed. Wasn't it prior to him? I don't know all of it. But
it was prior to him, so he can't be affected by even in Three Eyes Only goes to her grave and puts the flowers down. So what the film is saying is that he is exactly the same character. James Bond is James Bond. It's not another person that takes up the mantle.
I took it slightly different because I think yes, it's a character, it's a code name and code ident. It's a cover identity, not a code name. It's a cover identity. So if you're in that city, the easiest thing is go and put flowers on this grave because you would be expected to, because that's part of your cover identity.
Yeah, no, but that doesn't make. Oh God, that's terrible.
It's terrible, but because the thing is, we are all aware that you can have multiple actors playing the same part throughout the years.
Same character.
The same character. Sorry.
Yeah.
But the thing is, nowadays, a lot of people are trying to explain it, and to me, if they want to explain it, just say it's a cover identity because you
don't need an explanation, mate.
Sometimes you do have to dig into the explanation because that is what makes us geeks.
Yeah, exactly.
We want the nitty gritty, and we never get the explanation from the authors or anything.
Yeah,
but we want to know where Spider-Man really came from. Where did Hulk really came from? Who was Bruce Banner before he was?
Or is it David
Bruce Banner?
I know. Exactly. It was David Banner.
Well, exactly. We want to know.
You wouldn't like
him
when he was angry.
I'd tickle him a bit.
You look at it now. If an actor dies, suddenly that character disappears from the screen. The guy who played Chekhov in the new Star Trek, he passed away.
Such a tragedy.
Was there a Chekhov in the next movie? No, because he died.
I know what you're saying, but but
it's because people can't handle that. Oh, that's a different guy playing the same part.
They can,
but they did that with Spartacus.
Not the ones, the geeky ones. I'm talking about the normal ones that go, oh, he's not the same guy. So
I'm James Bond. I'm James Bond. I'm James Bond.
But James Bond is very unique, right?
Yeah.
That when an actor stops playing James Bond, they get another actor, but he is the same character. These days, if you want to put your head canon on and say all this stuff, you can say it as much as you want, but the filmmakers intended that person to be Bond. He wasn't another person playing Bond or another. It was James Bond.
Because you look at the Black Panther. Oh God. Chadwick, was it Chadwick?
Chadwell Boswell or something.
Boswick. Right? He passed away, and they're not casting another Black Panther. Why? he is an actor playing a part. Any other actor,
you know why?
But
this is something I really hate about how nowadays Hollywood could have resisted this. But when I grew up, and I know this will be a very large tangent, and I don't mean it to be the bigger tangent, but a Nintendo Entertainment System in the 1984, I believe it came out. You can actually go back to a charity shop or whatever and grab one of those units that was actually built in 1984, bring it home, just clean it up a little bit, plug it in, and it will work. Hollywood held out at least until about the 2007. We can still make this unit work, even if some pieces are falling off, like an actor dies or whatever. We can rebuild it, but they have not done so for the last, shall we say, 15 years. Character dies or they don't want to be with us anymore. It's like completely discarded, regardless of them being the main draw to the show. Well, then you have the other opposite of Hollywood with, shall we say, the Ezra Miller story that I can't even wrap my head around. It's like,
if you're talking about Black Panther, the reason why they're not going to recast Chadwick is because they want a woman in that part. That's been their MO from Lord knows when.
I know,
so that's why they're not going to replace
it. And do that now, but they're actually, so what they're doing is they're going into it by saying that nobody else can be cast in that role because he passed away. So the next thing is when they're doing a Black Panther one, then it's about his
sister. The next one's about his sister becoming Black Panther.
T'Challa. So and then it's all about her, and then the next one is her as Black Panther, and that's what I'm saying. They don't want to actually put somebody in that role, and they don't want to automatically change. And because people will say, "Oh, you just did that because he died, because that's his role," and they're too busy worried that somebody's going to criticize them for stuff.
Well, the dumb thing with that, I think, is that they've with a lot. I mean, it occurs to me with a lot of these, especially if I'm thinking more to Marvel than the DC superheroes. No. Is that with T'Challa at the start? If I remember right, T'Challa is not the Black Panther at the start of the movie. His dad is. Right. His dad is assassinated, and he goes and he takes over the role of Black Panther. So basically, Black Panther is
a role.
It's to use your term. It's a code name. Right, so anybody can fill that. Well, obviously not, but so all they need to do, if they wanted to carry on with that one, we could say, there is absolutely no way that they can't actually. Excuse me, actually, there's no reason they can't possibly actually have a white Black Panther.
Technically, they could,
because but more to the point. It's a role that's inherited, if you like.
But it's also it's a reason why there's no reason why they couldn't have a female Black Panther, because it is the Black Panther is also the leader, the king or the queen. Is the chief of the
there's that. Yeah, I forgot that.
So if it's a female who's the leader, who's the only surviving child of the current leader, she would get the role of the leader based on what's laid out. They could have easily did it that way, but the problem is they're worried that people go because bad that was his, and that's where the problem is. You look at it even with when, as I was saying, Star Trek, the guy who played Chekhov died, and what did they do? Did they cast somebody else? No, they left him out of it because they didn't want to recast him. Because of the same attitude nowadays, they don't want to, because they're scared if somebody criticizes them for doing it, and that's stupid.
Well, the thing is, they never made a Star Trek film without him.
He died before Beyond. Did he not?
No, he was in Beyond.
He did.
He was in Beyond.
How many of the movies I've watched?
Yeah, he was in Beyond. He was Beyond. I think the next one, maybe they might not replace him. But if they do replace him, it doesn't matter because look at the A-Team, right? The A-Team never had the guy who played Face in the A-Team. He wasn't in the pilot. Yet they replaced him with the guy that we know as Face. They can do it. It's up to them if they want to do it.
It's absolutely possible, and I agree. And there is multiple characters angles here. I'm going to try and remember all of it because I don't have my notepad in front of me where I keep typing it down. So Anna, the Star Wars girl, did a video earlier today, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Yeah, it's Taika Waititi. He's currently shooting, or was currently shooting, Thor with Natalie Portman and whatnot, where she's being Thor and everything. Thor. And he asked her, "Hey, would you like to be in a Star Wars film?" I don't know if it was a joke or not, but apparently he seemed to have not researched the background of the actor he's working with, knowing that, yes, she's actually been in major film franchises. Okay, not the best part of it, but judging by what I'm seeing coming out, claimed to be Star Wars today, I'm really, really being very forgiven about the prequels with Jar Jar Binks and everything. And I'm starting to think that I was okay with Jar Jar Binks existing. And now I'm seeing what I'm seeing today. It's like, okay, Jar Jar Binks is definitely okay for me. But when it comes down to the bottom line, for geeks like me, I'm not speaking for any of you or anyone else on the internet, is for me, is the character. I don't care if an actor sadly dies because of a really freak accident that happened to the guy playing Chekhov in the new Star Trek, because that was a really horrific accident, and I do feel sorry for him and his family and all of that. But he brought life to Chekhov, the original Chekhov, which I prefer to refer to as Bester, because I think he's doing a far greater job in Babylon 5.
He's the Bester version.
Yes,
the version of it.
Yes, he was definitely
the original.
But he was a character. He brought back life into Chekhov, regardless of it being not the greatest Star Trek stuff. But he brought back life to that character. If they could find someone else to do the same, I could forgive facial appearance. Mimics, so expressions. I could forgive that, but I want you to please bring back my beloved characters to life, not just read off a teleprompter like a soulless BBC journalist sitting there and just going, "Oh, this morning we had 200 fires and 300 bombings, and there was war breaking out in this region." No.
Well,
be more alive.
The thing is,
a unique character.
The thing is, right? I don't look. Hollywood has become this thing about pronouns and all that rubbish that comes with the woke stuff. That's what it's become now, right? But if I was in charge,
you know some really good filmmakers and get them on this channel. Yeah.
So if I was in charge, with, like, say, for instance, Indiana Jones, I would have cast someone else to play Indiana Jones, because Indiana Jones is not Harrison Ford. No matter what anyone says,
no, I know.
You could replace Harrison Ford with someone that's younger, more dynamic, and just bring the adventure again to the audience. Yeah. You have to have a good director. You have to have a good casting.
They did that really great with young Indiana Jones.
They did, yeah.
They did. That was really good. I quite enjoyed that.
Yeah, so they can do it. It's just that they don't want to do it because of current year politics. That's why.
Christ Almighty, look, but sometimes it doesn't work, and it's not to do with the actor. Because you look at Solo, a Star Wars story.
That's terrible.
Everybody says his addition was good. but then they gave him shite to work with. So it doesn't matter how good he could actually do something and how he could bring that.
They gave him crap to work with.
Crap, you're going.
It wasn't his audition wasn't good. He was known by the filmmakers. That's why he was cast. It was ridiculous.
I was told when I heard about it, I was told, "Oh, he got it because his audition was really good."
Yeah, exactly. Well, he got it because he knew the producers. He looks nothing like Harrison Ford. He acted nothing like Han Solo in the movie, and it was just a piece of shit from start to finish. Let's face it. I mean, the line that he goes, "What's your surname?" "I don't have a surname." "Well, I'll just call you Solo." How ludicrous is that in the script?
How did he get his gun? Here's a gun.
Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous film.
That's why I hate prequels. I dislike prequels. There's very, very few I've actually enjoyed. You look at the prequels, Star Wars, the prequels, all these characters I've never met. Funny how they all meet each other first. But right, okay, those two droids, let's wipe their memory. 20 years down the line,
don't get me started on this one, because we have the 3 batches of the films being made. So the real Star Wars,
the good,
no. Star Wars was made in the 80s, and then we had some
70s
Star Wars Ishi made 20 years later.
The bad.
And then another 20 years later, we had another batch of these. They're supposed to be kind of overlapping and interlapping and beforelapping because they don't come in real order. But even in the universe that is displayed, is 20 years-ish between them as they take place. And between them, everybody forgets Jedi, Sith, Coruscant, the Empire, the evil people, the Star Destroyers. We didn't know about this. I was like, hang on, it's been 20 years.
Are you talking about
it's
Disney
20
Star
years
Wars?
And you're playing a 35-year-old person?
Because you look at the original Star Wars, they didn't believe that Ben was a Jedi because that's
he's a spooky guy up in the hills.
And even when he cuts the arm off the guy in the bar, people are looking as if to say, and he's saying, "Oh, what's that? Is this one of these lightsabers we heard so much about?" You mean something that only happened when you were like 5? They stopped using them, so maybe 15 years nobody's used them, but it's mythological, as if it's been in the distant past.
Well, that's one of the things that, I mean, I don't know if I was just not paying attention. It's possible. But one of the things that got me, that really surprised me with the prequels was, hold on, you mean to tell me that the Empire has only been around for 16 years? I thought it had been around for about a generation.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
The impression, the impression I got all the way through the original movies was that it had been around for, I say a generation. That it was establishing, especially when you're talking something the size of a galaxy.
Talking about Disney Star Wars.
Exactly. When you're talking about something having a Death Star, I'm thinking these guys have been around for about 250 years or something.
Yeah, but you're talking about Disney Star Wars. Disney Star Wars don't know what they're doing.
The original Star Wars, they implied that the Empire had been around for a while.
Yeah, they didn't watch the original films. That's the problem with Disney Star Wars.
Yeah.
The
prequels did this first because they set it just before Luke was born, which means the Empire only started just after he was born, which means it's all established. That's why
30 years old.
They mess with everything. I don't like watching prequels because they mess with things.
But this is my biggest gripe with current day writing, is they have no concept of time. Well, it is my biggest. I couldn't
think of some more.
If you want to tell me a social justice story, you can do so.
What's the point?
But I do get where you're coming from, Ian.
Right,
but
there you go.
Even so, it's the timeline of things. They just go, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, we can build a complete big planet destroyer, moon-sized thingy in 2 years' time, and it's like,
I didn't mind that in the prequels. The prequels were terrible in my opinion, but I do prefer that than the Disney Star Wars. Definitely.
Yeah, they are better, but the fact is, I dislike prequels because they mess around with.
They do,
established. That's why I dislike a prequel, unless the prequel is going back long enough where this is how the Empire was built.
Well,
none of the original characters, and it's just telling you how it was built 200, 300 years ago, so they can build up as long as the
problem is it starts with George Lucas. Like, okay, so if you look at the Star Wars films very carefully, he made Star Wars, okay, and he almost had a breakdown making that film, okay, and for some miracle it was the biggest box office film in the world, right? Then he didn't want to direct anymore because he got such a horrible time directing, and he gave it to Ivan Kershner to direct Empire, and he only had the idea for Empire, and it was written by 2 other people. So he literally let go of Star Wars for Empire Strikes Back. He was going for a divorce as well. That's why he let go. He mortgaged his house to make Empire Strikes Back because, let's face it, the Star Wars films were independent films. They weren't owned by Hollywood. They were owned by George Lucas. And the same thing with Return of the Jedi. The real problems start when he wanted to make the sequels because he was in charge, right? He was directing, and he hates directing, and he doesn't really have an imagination. If you look at the Raiders films, the Lost Ark films, the Indiana Jones films, the only reason why those films work is because Spielberg knows how to direct a movie. He has no clue, absolutely no clue. And that's why the prequel failed, because he decided to take on himself rather than hire real directors. He couldn't even direct an actor. He was that bad. So when you look at it, it was his fault. But there's no excuse for Disney Star Wars because that is awful. Absolutely awful.
At least when George Lucas was directing, he'd always said he had a he'd always said he knew he was starting in the middle because the technology wasn't there, etc. What I find quite interesting is I'm not, unlike a lot of Star Wars fans, I've read a few of the books, the extended universe.
Splinter in the Mind's Eye is the best book ever.
Funny you should say that, because this is why I was right from the start that either George Lucas hadn't decided that Luke and Leia were twins, or he didn't tell Alan Dean Foster.
No, I think that was just
because Alan Dean. Because if you read Splinter in the Mind's Eye, knowing that those two are brother and sister, there are some bits in it which may go. There are bits to say that far, but there are some bits in it which you may go,
really?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't get. It doesn't. There's nothing. There's nothing in there that is weird. They don't get together or anything. Of course, but you have to be bearing in mind they don't know that they're related.
Yeah, but the thing is, they didn't change that until after the movie was out.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm reasonably certain that
when the book was written, it was the same idea.
Because Splinter in the Mind's Eye is an excellent.
Especially when you got Chewbacca actually jumping into an AT-AT and ripping 2 stormtroopers to shreds.
I
wanted to see that on screen.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I remember reading some bits and I'm thinking, well, hold on a second, these are brother and sister.
Well, the thing is, though, the truth is they were making up as they went along. George Lucas had a plan, but he was still making up as he go because they left Empire Strikes Back when Yoda was saying there is another. And they were like, who's the other? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they had to fill that gap, and they basically filled the gap with Princess Leia.
Mhm.
So, and also Darth Vader being Luke's father. Now, George Lucas decided that they are father and son. They had to go back and make an excuse for Ben Kenobi saying from a different point of view, that kind of thing. So, you know what I mean? So it was being made up as it went along. But still, those three were great, in my opinion. They were fantastic entertainment as a kid.
I think Roman's right. It's typically, nowadays, they can turn around and say, we're going to make 3 movies beforehand because they know that. Back then, he wanted to make a movie and it was a start, middle, and end on a movie. It's only because it became successful and he wanted to do another one, that's when they start changing the story. But it's like a lot of movies. There's a movie, they don't think this could be the launch, so we'll leave bits here and there. Whereas now, you hear things like, we're doing The Hobbit, but we're making it into 3 movies. Or we're doing The Lord of the Rings, but we're shortening it into 3 movies. They automatically know they're getting multiple movies.
Yeah.
Well, but before,
the problem.
When they used to do that before, it was all about money, like the Three Musketeer movies, you know, by the people who made Superman. They did it because they knew that they would make more money, you know, to condense the money to make one film and split it into 2. So they knew they would make more money. Because let's face it, when you shoot a film, you always shoot more than you need. And then you edit it down to 2 hours. Usually the amount of footage that you have at the end of a movie is like 4 hours, 5 hours tops. And then you edit it down to 2. So they were clever. They were like, yeah, let's make 2.
They did that with the Back to the Future 2 and 3.
Yeah, they did,
Because it was cheaper.
But definitely the original Star Wars films, they do feel more disjointed. They're separate stories, one on their own. Although I will say Empire Strikes Back and Jedi Returns, they feel like, okay, we know we have more material than we need. And they added extra shootings on top of it to make the next film for it. Because if you look at The Empire Strikes Back, it really ends literally in the middle of a film.
Well, the reason
literally the camera just going out from the med bay.
One of the reasons why is that they didn't know that Harrison Ford was going to come back. So it was left when they finished making Empire Strikes Back. Harrison Ford didn't want to come back.
Yeah,
he wanted him to die at the end, and George Lucas said no, he's not going to die at the end. So they had to negotiate with Harrison Ford to come back for the 3rd one, and obviously gave him a lot of money, and he came back for the 3rd one. So once they had Harrison Ford on board, they had to adjust the script to compensate for now they've got Han Solo back. So, you know, as I said, they were making it up as they went along because of the situation that they were in. But still, it's much better than anything Star Wars today. You know, Return of the Jedi is the weakest out of the 3, but it's still better than the crap that we're getting on TV and the Disney saga.
Yeah, well, that's because for starters, whatever else they want you to do, they want to tell a story, not push a message.
Absolutely.
Exactly. But I do find it very interesting. We started The Spy Who Loved Me, and now we're discussing how Star Wars formed out.
Well, let's get back to Spy Who Loved Me
at the same time.
Let's get back to Bond. The name's Bond, James Bond.
Well, I just want to tell you an interesting fact. Have you noticed the supporting cast members in the film?
Which film? Jeremy Bullock. Yeah.
Jeremy Bullock.
He's
Shane Rimmer.
That's right.
Robert Brown. George Baker.
They're all British actors.
Yeah, but some of them were in Bond movies, and some of them went on into the other Bond movies.
Yep, they did. I mean, Jeremy Bullock was in 2 James Bond films, wasn't he? He was in 2.
Yeah.
And some of them flew Sky One.
Yeah.
But don't forget, you got Walter.
Michael Bennington's in there.
Yeah. Walter Gotel playing General Gogol.
Yes, he's been in a few. Yeah.
And he went on into, this is his beginning film, really.
Yes, it was.
This is the start of his film.
I love Roger Moore in this film. I think Roger Moore was the Bond that I grew up with when I was a kid. He was a regular fixture in my summer. So every other summer he would be there as Bond, And that's why I love these films so much. I would have nothing bad said about Spy Who Loved Me.
My Bond was Sean Connery because my mum loved Sean Connery.
Right. I like Sean.
But Roger Moore was the Saint growing up.
Yes, that's what I was going to say about that.
And that's where I first saw Roger Moore, and I enjoyed the Saint.
I love the Saint.
But weren't the Saint like a James Bond?
It was a bit.
Yeah.
Especially if you read the books.
And I enjoyed that I enjoyed the Saint, and it's because of that when I after I'd watched the Bond that my mum and dad would watch all the time, then Roger Moore's Bond as well. Oh, I need to see them. And when we first got our first video machine, we would go down and get 3 videos a night every week. And the first one I got was a Bond one.
But PJ, do you remember the days when they used to have a double bill? So in the cinemas, they weren't cinemas like Cineworld now. They used to have little independent cinemas, and they used to show You Only Live Twice together with Live and Let Die. There was a double bill. Yeah, so you would go in the cinema, you watch Connery, and then you watch
Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
we would go down. It was La Scala or the Regent in Glasgow.
Saturday morning flicks. Oh, Saturday morning pictures. Bloody hell.
Yeah. I mean, it was a different. The way you experience movies when we were growing up, and I'm not speaking for all of you, but when I grew up, it was about double bills. You'd walk past the cinema and you'd see the poster for both Bonds, and it would be Sean Connery and Roger Moore, and you'd go in there, 50p. You'll sit there all day, and you can watch the film You can watch the film over and over again. They wouldn't kick you out of the cinema. You know what I mean?
And if they would kick you out of the cinema, you'd go to the loo until the cleaners had come back out, and you go back in.
For me, it was the matinee experience, and I actually did something very cheeky when I was about 13, 14 years old. I went down to the local cinema and asked them to train me to be the operator in the back room. So not only did I load the film wheels, cartridge or whatever they're supposed to be called. Yes, my critical job part was if it jams, I need to bring it back on. But 999 times out of 10, it was just load it up, line the film, play it. And then you could just walk into the cinema and sit down in the back room if there was a free seat, and you could watch.
Do you know one of the things that one of my friends' job was? He was watching for the 2-reelers. He was watching for the squiggles down the side because that told him it was coming up for a change.
Yeah, the next
you
reel.
had to get it. So that's why he lets TV one. See if you see an old TV show and you get the wee square up in the top corner.
The wee squiggly ones. Yes, that's where you need to put on the next one.
In the old movies, it was you would see it's almost like a bad part of the film. It would just be a wee squiggle appearing, and that was to tell you get ready to change.
All right,
but it wasn't bad working in the cinema back room or anything, because when you started seeing those squigglies, and it's like, okay, you have about 2 minutes to hook on the next wheel. So you just went out into the back room, you put on the next wheel, and you taped it on. You took the last piece out, and you just hooked it on, and you had to hold it on a wheel so it started feeding back in, and then just put the wheel back onto the machine, and you could just go back out and continue enjoying the film.
I'm going to throw a question out to everybody in the chat and also on the panel. How many times has Roger Moore played James Bond?
7.
There's a trick to it.
I was going to say 7 as well, yeah.
See, I was going to say 6, but then
actually 8.
8 times. What was the other times that he wasn't in a Bond film then?
I know what one you're going to say. Can I say it first?
Yes, PJ.
It was the movie we did a review on. It was the
Cannonball Run.
Cannonball Run.
Yeah.
He played James Bond because he was with his mother, and she kept talking to him.
So would you say
he also kept threatening to kill her? What, 3 times?
Would you say it was 8 times then?
You could. Well, let's
Is it 8 times?
Because he played a James Bond. Bond.
That's his unofficial film. You can put it that way.
But if you say it was 8 times, it's definitely wrong because it was 9 times. If you say it's 8 times, then it was 9 times because he actually did a sketch on a TV show as James Bond before he was James Bond.
Yeah.
So then it's 9 then if you're counting those two, aren't you? So, nice. But I love Roger Moore. As I said, I think his films were fantastic.
It's because I loved him. I saw him as the Saint first before I saw him as Bond. I thought he was always fun.
He also did one of his earliest shows with the black and white version of Ivanhoe.
Yeah, he was.
And he was in Maverick.
He was. Was he?
Yes. He played Bew and Maverick back from 1960 to 61.
As I said, Spy Loved Me is one of my favourite Bond films. It has moments of seriousness in it. It has ludicrous sequences, and it also gives the audience what they want. It really does.
Those big action scenes.
It absolutely does.
The big action scenes were absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And do you know one wee silly thing about this movie I loved? Bond firing away. He goes out of bullets and he goes like that, and a guy taps him and hands him another one, and he loads it. And I thought, how often do you see that? Because you see everybody running, it's all the time. But there's him run out of bullets, and a guy tapped him and handed him more. I thought, wow. Something you don't see in every movie.
At the time, the studio that they used was one of the biggest studios in the world. And Ken Adams, who designed the set for the submarines, he was worried. He was saying, how can we light? It's so big. How can we light it? So the idea was to actually put lights in the actual set itself so it would light itself. So in other words, you wouldn't need any lights. There'd be lights built into the set. So it looked like it was part of the decor. So and that's how they got around that as well, which is, and I remember, I think the royal family, I think Princess Diana, Charles went to visit the set. It was on the news, as I recall. That was quite interesting as well. So, you know, Spy Loved Me has a huge history. It was the James Bond film that turned the Bond franchise around. It really did.
Especially building those life-size submarines.
Yeah. So
how much water did that place take?
A lot. It has a place in my heart. Spy Loved Me, because as I said, it reminds me when I was a kid. You know, I went to see that film 20 times. It was just 50p. It was 50p in cinema. Yeah, it was crazy. You know, you could just sit in the cinema all day watching it. You know, so
that's even weird. No, so I was saying you're saying that. You're saying about Roger Moore and the Saint, and it's even better than I clocked. His last credit was as a character called Jasper in a 2017 movie called The Saint. Yes, that one. You remember the Saint movie in 2017, right?
Yeah,
that was
Adam Rain and Elijah Dushku, right? But it gets one better. I've just noticed the third, the guy whose name appears above Roger Moore's on the cast, Ian Ogilvy.
Blimey.
So they've actually got two saints in the Saint movie, 2 TV saints in the Saint movie.
See, I like Ian Ogilvy as well.
Yeah,
I must admit, but I think Roger Moore was better in it.
Of course he was.
It's the first. Apart from anything else, it's always the first one you see in the role. It's like everybody says, "Who's their doctor?" and most of them will say, "Oh, he was the first one I saw."
Now,
so he's my doctor, so he's my favorite. But whereas John Pertwee's my doctor, but Tom Baker's my favorite.
I want to mention the music for it, the actual track. Weren't they going down the disco vibe for that soundtrack?
They were, because they couldn't afford John Barry. John Barry wasn't available, so they went with, I can't remember the guy's name, but he was the soundtrack for Spy Loved Me was really good. It wasn't too much. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, the main song, Nobody Does It Better.
Brilliant.
But they only threw in The Spy Who Loved Me once in that track, didn't they?
Yeah. It was great. It's a great theme. Great theme.
And it's so fondly remembered.
Kylie Simon, wasn't it?
That's it, Kylie Simon. Yeah, it was great. It was. There were
Music
so many good bits in
Marvin
that film.
Hamlish.
That's it, Marvin Hamlish. He basically took over the reins for the Bond theme. But as I said, John Barry wasn't available. John Barry obviously is the best at composing music for the Bond films. I think his last one was Living Daylights. I'm not really sure, John Barry. But yeah, everybody from that point on copied his style for Bond films. So John Barry, he brought the sound of James Bond to the movies, I guess. Broccoli was talking to him, and when he was talking about Goldfinger, but John Barry asked Broccoli, "Well, what do I do? What kind of music do you want for this film?" And he said, "I want it to sound like gold. I want it to sound like a celebration." And that was John Barry's thing, I guess. He made it sound bigger than the actual film itself.
Also, they changed the opening title card, didn't they?
Oh my god!
For
the gun barrel roll.
Oh, what for Spy Love Me?
Yeah, because it was different. It was
Yeah. It's a as I said, it's a good movie, and I remember it fond memories. I think the Spy Love Me is one of the best Roger Moore films. In fact, I think the best Roger Moore film. Personally, I think
the thing is, I didn't think much of the villain. It was
Stromberg.
Stromberg was on all that.
He didn't have much to do really.
Yeah.
But he was evil.
He was evil, but he was a lazy recluse. But
he was.
But in Moonraker, I think they gave
Drax
more of a bigger role.
I like Drax.
Yeah.
But even though it was stupid, I liked that film. I thought it was quite a lot of fun. As I said, I think what's missing from Bond films today is the fun element of James Bond. People just look at it too seriously. But I remember somebody was saying, "Oh, James Bond's got too many gadgets and stuff like that." But that is James Bond's identity. It really is. You take away the gadgets, you've just got an action film. That's all you've got.
Ian, the question I've got for you, because I've already asked this, would this work today?
Yeah.
If they made it today, would The Spy Who Loved Me worked?
Of course, if you had the right director and the right script writer, of course it would. It definitely would work. I think so. I mean, with politics today, they will never allow this kind of film to be made because James Bond character is very much a white male and very much how shall I put it? Very much a man. Very much the woman's very much under his control. So they would never allow it today. But yes, it can be made. In fact, I think Moonraker was the same as Spy Love Me, but they just put it in space. It was the same thing. In fact, Spy Love Me had the same storyline as Goldfinger, if you look at it very closely. So Goldfinger had the car, Spy Love Me had the car. It was kind of mirroring Goldfinger, because Goldfinger was the film that actually turned James Bond into James Bond, the films we know now. Yeah, so
that is very true. But I will say this: we're talking 1977, and the female counter, whatever we were going to call it, because she's not really an enemy of James Bond. Even though she's supposed to be, she's supposed to be,
kill him because he
killed his husband.
Yeah, exactly. But she is all the banter, everything that's going on. She's okay to respond to it. She doesn't have to turn to Twitter and go, "No, I'm being harassed and I'm being stalked and I got no." She is just going like, "Oh, you're being cheeky. Let me be cheeky back."
A little known fact: John Billington, who played her boyfriend in the film, the guy in the beginning, he was up for taking over Roger Moore. Yeah, and
I heard that,
he had a hairy. His chest was hairy, wasn't it? It was like a monkey.
He wasn't long off of UFO, was he?
Yeah. Who else what's his name? Sam Neill auditioned for James Bond as well, didn't he? Sam Neill, would you believe that?
Yeah, I've seen the video of that.
He was quite close, actually getting the part, but he didn't. So there you go. And I think Dalton got it. Yeah. So, but Sam Neill did an audition to play James Bond, and he was pretty good actually. But I think Broccoli didn't like him for some reason, so they went with Dalton. So
Dalton was originally supposed to be after.
Yeah, he was too young. He was too young, wasn't he, at the time?
Yeah.
I do like Dalton.
Roger Moore's got a nice little. He's got a little voice credit here for a 2004 short, animated cartoon. He's playing Santa, but the film is called The Fly Who Loved Me. The other character is The Fly. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing any pictures or anything, but it looks as if it's an animated about a fly.
And also, I've got to mention a certain Mike Myers movie that's
Spy Shag Me.
Yeah.
But if you look at that film very carefully, there's scenes in it they will not do today, like the bit where James Bond goes and he's in Egypt and he goes into that place and he's going to meet Fekish's wife.
Yeah,
and he seduces her, doesn't he? And then she takes a bullet. She takes a bullet in the back for him. They would never do that today. And that's what Bond was all about.
He says, "Will you stay the night?" And he goes, "No, I can't. I'm really busy." When in Egypt, can't. I mean, it's almost a case of a woman comes in half naked. All right, then I'll no problem. No,
but that was the thing. That was considered funny, and I still think that's one of the funniest lines in the film
because he's so. It's all for Britain, and we're coming by.
But it's a lot of fun, that kind of humor, and it's not degrading women as people think it is now. It's not. It's basically it's just cheeky fun, innocent cheeky fun. That's all it is.
Can I just say so? I wonder how Roger put it up with the water being thrown over him and Barbara back during that scene where they had to escape.
Well, they both had to put up with it, didn't they?
I know, but the amount of water that were thrown into that set at the time.
Well, it's not as bad as Man with the Golden Gun, where him and I can't remember the girl, that they almost got blown up because they had to run for the explosion behind them. And Roger Moore was saying he actually felt the heat behind him as they were running because it was so
Sylvester
close.
McCoy, when he came out the head in the Carnival of Monsters.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Carnival of Monsters. It was the Great Show.
Carnival of Monsters, John Pertwee. Sorry, it was
Great Show in the Galaxy.
Great Show in the Galaxy. How when he walks out just so nonchalantly, and he says he failed. It's the same as Rick Mail. Same as Rick Mail. That's the one. The same as Rick Mail. The bit in the young ones when he goes like that, he's lighting the fire, and they put the stuff in for it to explode. But the guys didn't know, and somebody else came in and thought, "Oh, nobody's put the stuff in," and packed it again, and it was double. And you see the bit when they've done it in slow motion, you see him sort of going like that as if he's falling back, and he says it did blow him backwards.
But PJ, what about Red Dwarf where they're sitting on the set of the Starbug, and next you know, wallop.
But there are certain things they've done in movies and they've kept in movies, like for instance in Die Hard when the bad guy's holding on to the wife's hand and she lets go of the watch and he falls. That shot where he's falling, they didn't tell the actor that they were going to let him go. So the fear you see in his face is literally the fear that coming from him as he was falling.
It's Alan Rickman. He had a fear of heights already, even though he knew he had a safety net and all that behind him.
Yeah.
It's like a 12-foot drop.
Yeah, it was,
but it was too much for him. So it's his fear you do see when he's falling down.
I think someone said I think I saw him say they were supposed to count 1, 2, 3, and then let him go on 2.
Yeah, let him go on 2. That's why his face was. And also in Spy Love Me, when what's his name fires the bolt under the table. Roger Moore got hurt because he didn't get off the chair in time.
Ooh,
so
nasty.
he got splinters in his ass apparently. So.
Yeah, but at least he shot him.
You know, the part that was one of the parts I thought is a wee bit ridiculous is when he put the gun in it and goes, "You fired your bolt," and shoots twice up the tube. I thought, why would they shoot up the tube, especially when he stands up and shoots him twice more?
Well, he wanted to make a point, didn't he?
Yeah,
he wanted to shoot him in the most vulnerable.
Well, it didn't. I mean, because they done that a lot. I mean, famously in Alien, they didn't. John Hurt was the only one who knew that they'd actually got real offal in a pump.
That's not necessarily true. You know that, don't you?
Is it not? Because I thought that the idea was that he knew, but the others didn't. Well, at least the first time, at least the others didn't know. Well, why they got genuine reaction.
Everybody knew that he was in a table and his body was under the table. There's no way they could not have known that.
Oh, right, okay.
So the only thing, all right. So the only thing they didn't know was how much the blood was going to fly. That's why that's why you see the shots there. Well, Veronica Cartwright literally was scared because all that blood splattered on her. So yeah.
I reminded me of that, and it was about a train crash, and you just see the guy sitting reading the paper, and then a girder comes through because the train crashes. It comes through right through his chest and continues on. So it's implying that the trains hit this place and the girders are flying through, and the guy's just standing reading the paper. Obviously, he's in a harness, and they've obviously lined up where the girder's going to come down. But it looks as if it's coming dead fast, and how he didn't flinch. He's just sitting there, and it just goes right through his paper. It's meant to go right through his chest, and it just continues going. And it always reminded me of the alien coming out the other way in John Hurt's chest, because I knew he was underneath, and it was coming up through. It's just when I saw that one, I thought, wonder if it's the similar harness with this big thing coming through, going in his chest.
It is a good it's a good sequence, and also it's very creepy. I find Alien very creepy personally. It's a very creepy movie as far as I was concerned. So
it is one of my best horror film there is.
Yeah,
it's you know what it is, but you still don't know until you see it what it looks like.
Yeah.
It sadly degrades quickly the more time you watch it, but when you just watch it to appreciate it, Alien is absolutely flawless when it comes to it's scary, it's claustrophobic, it has all the elements that you just want. It's just like, hey, we don't know if anybody's going to survive.
Alien and Spy Love Me has two things in common. It has the effects that were done for Spy Love Me and Alien were done very similar. So when Star Wars came out, 1977, they used the remote control cameras to shoot models on blue screen. It was blue screen in those days. But Spy Love Me couldn't afford it, and nor could Alien. So every effect you see in Alien was called a superimpose effect, which basically they racked the film backwards. It was a very similar effect they did for a Space 1999. So they would basically shoot the model on black, rack the film backwards, then add the stars in, the star field in, and that's how they did that. And Spy Love Me obviously had huge amount of model making and stuff like that. So it just goes to show the British technicians were really good at their job compared to the Americans, who were relying on slightly computer technology at that time. So, and also remember, Star Wars had British technicians as well. So so it's pretty amazing when you think about it, the stuff that they actually achieved in those films. So there you go.
So what we'll do, because we need to finish shortly. I'm up early. What would you give for this out of 10, and your favourite part of it? Go round the table. Who wants to go first?
Ian goes first since he's the guest.
Ian goes first because
okay.
He's also the expert.
I
was gonna go first. But
go on then, Jim.
Ian goes first, and then we go. Jay. So I becomes before Jay.
Okay. I would give it an 8 out of 10 because no film is perfect, but because it's part of my childhood, I loved it. My favorite moment in the entire movie is definitely when the Lotus went underwater. It's definitely the Lotus sequence where it was being chased and stuff. That's my favorite part. But overall, the film is a pretty amazing movie as far as I was concerned. And I love it so much. And I think, as I said, it was part of my childhood. It's part of my summers, James Bond movies. And I would just leave it there because, as I said, it should be celebrated. This kind of movie, because we don't get movies like this today at all.
No, definitely don't, and we don't get movies with a good opening, a good Bond opening. Yeah. Even the Bond movies don't have parts like that anymore. Fun movies, fun parts.
Yeah, you're stealing all my good material here, Peter.
Sorry.
Right. So my favorite part is split across the entire film. It's because the cheekiness, the innuendos, the back and forth between the British agent and the Russian agent. Yes, it's James Bond and Amasova, but they are on equal terms. And I actually have to admit, I think it's what I hear of current day that is really bringing this up front even more. This is 77. All the kids on the Twitter, they were born in 2000. They were born 23 years, a quarter of a century later. And go, this never happened. I was like, yes, it did. We just happen to have a more relaxed nature and understanding that it was meant for fun, not to insult, not to damage, not to hurt, not to insult. And this film is so full of these quips, I would say. I believe quips is actually a word where you actually dance back and forth.
Yeah.
And both of them are holding their own ground.
Yeah.
But I will give my favorite scene is when the car goes under the water. Because this is part and parcel of what I've always considered James Bond. I can't remember the film, but the James Bond film, but there is a red car, and I believe they're in Singapore or something, and it's going up a ramp, and it's twisting.
That's the one with the two Americans.
Man with the golden gun. Yeah.
Exactly. But that is quintessential James Bond for me. They're doing the dumbest, the most silliest stuff there is. So I will say my favorite part of it is the underwater car, and I'm seconding PJ's idea here. Is if I won the Euro Million lottery, I would definitely try and figure out how to get one of those Lotus cars for myself. The flaw of the film, I'm struggling to find one.
With this one, you don't even need to find a flaw.
No.
Just give us your score.
Well, it is not a 10, but it is, and I will put this up there with The Princess Bride and everything, 9.75. This is such a lovely film. You have the humor, you have the action, you have the battles, you have the plot lines, you have actors that actually hold up against each other. And this is something I think we've lost when it came to the Bond girls. Absolutely. Later on, the last, say, 15, 20 years, a Bond girl's requirement, do you look good in a bikini? Whereas Barbara Bach, she was not only looking good in whatever she was wearing, she could also really act. And that holds true for a lot of the older Bond films. Yes, it is an attractive woman for most people, but she could also hold her own. It wasn't like, you asked me a complex question. Can I brush my hair? It's like, no. She could actually respond back and be clever. And in this case, the spy who loved me, I keep forgetting what her name is, but Barbara Bach's character has an edge to it. She still sounds dangerous. She still sounds like she is someone that could kill 007.
No, she kept
if he crosses her.
Anya Amasova.
Amasova, yeah. But yeah, 9.75. This is as close as you can get to a really, truly great film.
Very good. Right. Alec?
Colin, do you want to go first or shall I?
You go. I haven't seen it in a while. I'm going to mind myself.
I'll give this a 9.5. The worst, not the worst scene, but more like the worst villain that I've ever seen was, Stromberg. However, I do like the spectacular, shootout in the oil tanker, and it was like trying to get out of there before the boat goes down. Yep. And they're doing everything they can. That is on par with You Only Live Twice, the battle in the volcano.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's all I could. But the thing is, it is a big major turn for Bond, but it was a bit of a downfall for Bond and all. Too over the top. That's all I can say. So that's why I'll still give it a 9.5 because it is a great fun film to watch.
Yeah.
Oh, you know how much I really love allocating numbers.
Yep.
Favorite bit. Discussed with a lot of you. I'm absolutely discussed with a lot of you. The bit that was so good, Daniel Craig had to do it for the Olympics. Well, I mean, come on, it's that iconic a shot. Daniel Craig does it for the Olympics. The parachute, obviously. I mean, it goes over that, but it's just, and of course into the they're coming for one of you.
Ice cream going
I'm not sure. Bad bits again. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, as I said, I mean, I haven't actually seen it for a while, so I'm remembering. But yeah, the villain wasn't. As you said, the villain wasn't the strongest, and there's some bits that make you think, okay, hold on, yeah. But but for a score, 8.5. I mean, it's a good film. It's definitely a watchable film.
Yeah.
I say I haven't seen it in quite a while to remember it. So a lot of what I'm remembering is what you guys were talking about.
Yep. Very good. Well, see, I find this movie very tricky to score. I love it. Definitely, to me, it's very close to a 10. However, it's not my favourite Bond movie. Sean Connery's movie, I like Sean Connery just slightly more. I think Roger Moore is a more fun Bond, whereas James Bond's, Sean Connery's Bond, I don't know. It's just obviously because I grew up with them before the Moore Bond, and that's the only reason. So I would give it this I would say an 8.5, and it's all. The worst part of it is, believe it or not, it's the exact same as everybody else's. I found the villain too much of a Superman Lex Luthor villain. I'm going to conquer the world by destroying it. Really? And I found it's just over the top. But that is the way they started doing the villains. And I think it's been... They want the next villain to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And it gets to the point where it's that big. You've got Moonraker. He's wanted to destroy the Earth because he's got a colony in the moon. In this one, he wants to destroy the Earth because he's got a colony under the water, and it's that type of thing. I just never find them. I find them a wee bit too much. However,
you see, I hate to interrupt, but you are spot on here. The villain is a little bit of the letdown because there's always a bigger sense of urgency against the villains when it came to James Bond prior and
he
after.
wasn't Blofeld. That's the thing.
Yeah,
exactly. He didn't feel like a big threat enough.
Yeah, he wasn't Scaramanga, he wasn't Blofeld, and he wasn't along those lines. It was too big.
Actually, you saying that, I'll be a challenge for you then, PJ. If James Bond 007 is a code name because it's been played by so many different actors, is Ernst Stavro Blofeld a code name?
Good point.
Good point. Very good point.
Because he's been played by at least 4 different actors that I can think
the
of.
two of them were brothers. One's George Blofeld, and the other one's Archie. Didn't you know that?
In Daniel Craig movie. Didn't they actually, in the one Daniel Craig movie, their version of Blofeld was or something?
Aye, basically they have actually mentioned it the last time we met, and it was different actors.
That's what I'm saying. You can't apply that stupid headcanon to James Bond. It really, I mean, I'll tell you another thing, just briefly. When I went to Dallas, I went to South Fork Ranch, and they were talking about the Bobby scene, the famous Bobby scene where Bobby appears in the shower.
Makes up.
Right, yeah, right. So, according to them, right, that is a different universe because they had a spin-off called Knots Landing, right? And in Knots Landing, they never referred to Bobby. So, they're saying that when Bobby came back, it was a different universe to Knots Landing because it didn't line up with Knots Landing, and Knots Landing was the same, had the same characters and stuff like that.
So line up with Dallas.
That round your head.
No, it had to be because my mother pointed out because she was a big Dallas fan.
Yes, so my parents were.
Because he woke up, which meant the whole, was it 2 years, a year and a half?
Yeah, it was disappeared.
Had disappeared, but they still referred back to it.
No, but in Knots Landing, they carried on from that point that Bobby was dead. And those two shows are on. So
the fact is, in Dallas, they still had stories running which happened before he woke up, that happened when he was meant to be streaming.
No, but
all the women's hairstyles had changed.
No, but the point I'm trying to make is that Knots Landing and Dallas were both in the same universe. But when he appeared in the shower, they always, in Knots Landing, because Knots Landing was played on a Friday and Dallas in America was played on the Wednesday, they carried on with Bobby being dead in Knots Landing. So that's what they were saying. And so I was like sitting there.
Whereas my mother actually pointed it out. It says that things that happened before he woke up, they still were continuing the storylines happened the couple of weeks before where he was meant to have been dead. So he woke up, but there were still storylines that happened in his dream still happened. And that's what my mom basically says, that they broke it when they brought him back.
They did. They literally broke. They basically jumped the shark.
Roseanne did it as well. They tried to do it with the last season because it was crap. Suddenly, John Goodman's character, Dan, was dead, and it was her dream of a happily ever after. And I thought that sort of killed that one. Yeah. And obviously got around it by starting it back up years later, and he was back because they just ignored that last season.
Got to be careful with different universes.
Yeah. But anyway, the bad part was I just found it was a wee bit over the top villain. But the problem with this movie, the reason I'm saying that is there's so many good parts. I loved the start with the parachute. I loved the Lotus underwater. I even loved the Lotus coming out of the water, and he just goes like that, even though it's a bit ridiculous with how the hell did a fish that size get in his boat. That means there's a big hole in it. But I loved the fight sequence, not the bit with the it's all blown up. Even just the beginning with the amount of extras all fighting to give that whole set a good looking at, because sometimes they were pulling the camera right back and you could see people fighting away over there in the distance, there. They were all over, and it just looked amazing. I loved the big set piece. It was great.
That was the one thing that one of the good things about Bond movies was that you almost always ended up in a big set piece.
Yeah,
and that's what I liked about this one. The big set piece was just amazing, because it just dragged you in, and you're just watching all the and people fighting hand to hand, and it just was great. I just loved it for that. So that's why
visually, the Spy Who Loved Me is stunning.
It is.
In terms of the camera placement, the set scenes. You even feel it, even though you get a little bit of, shall we say, Thunderbirds feeling when the ship is like squally, like creating waves in the ocean.
Derek Meddings who did the model shots.
Yeah, Derek Meddings. Yeah.
Some of the pictures, some of the photos. When I had it up on IMDb, I was definitely getting. Okay, where's Thunderbird 2 again?
Yeah.
Just from the sheer imaging. Okay, I'm expecting Thunderbird 2 to come into shot any second.
Still right there, Colin. That's where it is.
Oh, right.
It looks great. It looks great.
So you're telling me you're the one holding up this film from being 2 hours long from just being like a 15-minute film?
I think it's a great movie, personally.
I think it is a great movie. I think we all agree it is a movie that should be watched by more and more and more people all the time.
Well,
you should try watching it in 4K, mate. It's really good. You'll see all those mistakes in 4K.
Ian, you did mention jumping the shark, right?
Yeah.
Well, Roger avoided the shark.
He did.
That was the thing, is the Jaws biting the shark. I'm sitting there thinking, he's just actually biting. He's just biting a chunk out of it. The shark is enormous, and it's even if he's biting a chunk out of it, the shark's not going to die because he's bitten a bit off its fin.
But the Jaws, or the Jaws, whatever his name is supposed to be, I actually like him as a bad guy.
They had sharks in there deliberately, and they wanted to have Jaws with Jaws. You knew fine well they wanted to have Jaws with Jaws.
Exactly, but he's at the same time a very scary guy, because when you see how big he is and everything, and like you said, PJ, when he smiles and it's like just a massive set of steel teeth.
Mm-hmm.
It is not like Los Angeles, like gangster. I got like one gold tooth, and it's like no, his entire thing is just replaced with steel.
You see, the reason why Spy Love Me works so well is because it has fantastical elements in it. And I know a lot of people say, oh, the books weren't like that. But we're not talking about the books. We're talking about the movies. The movie grew into this thing that kids and families love going to see. That's why I hate the Daniel Craig version so much, is because they try to make it too real. And it's just nonsense.
Yeah, but they did the reason.
I want to see beautiful women. I want to see great cars. I want to see big set pieces. I don't want to see a guy just getting his boys under a chair getting bashed. I don't care about that.
But the reason
never happened a Roger Moore movie, and it never would. And I'm glad it would never happen.
That was actually in the original book.
It may have been in the book, but we're talking about the actual franchise.
I don't think Roger Moore, Sean Connery, even Lazenby would have worked in the same way that they presented Craig Daniels.
No, of course not.
Because they were sophisticated James Bond, whereas Craig Daniels' James Bond is, I just go up to someone and punch them in the face.
He's exactly the opposite.
The reason why they did the Daniel Craig movies realistically is thanks to the Bond movies.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
If it wasn't for them, that's why James Bond went down that path.
James Bond is not supposed to be Jason Bourne, even though the initials are the same.
Yeah,
and this is where you're missing the audience, because the Bourne films were trying to emulate the Bond films.
Yeah, and they basically ended up copying what somebody was trying to copy. It'd be like somebody trying to make a new Star Trek movie and copying the Orville. which copied the original Star Trek. And it'd be, no, copy the original Star Trek because you're a part of Star Trek. Don't copy somebody who's copied you.
Tried to make a new Lord of the Rings based on something that was written to be exactly the opposite of Lord of the Rings, like Game of Thrones. No, sorry, they'd never do anything stupid like that, would they?
No, of course not.
Anyway,
that's stupid. Oy.
Thank you guys for joining us. I'm literally up early again in the morning for work, but we'll be back on Saturday to talk geeky.
What are you going to be talking about on Saturday?
What have I been
everything
watching?
And anything.
Right, okay.
And I'll talk about what I've been watching.
All right.
Recommended, and it's For All Mankind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that woke thing where the girls went to the moon and instead of the men?
No, but the thing is, that is very woke. But the thing is, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I was expecting it to be a lot worse. There's a lot of females in positions, and I think, but they don't. The guys are still very macho, and they don't get denigrated.
I would say I agree, Ian. That was when I first saw that. I saw the entire first series, and I'm thinking, I'm confused. Is this woke or not?
And that's exactly
because in the setting they've set up, it actually makes sense. It actually makes sense that you would push women, that you would push a coloured person into this role. It makes sense because of the race they're in with the Russians.
And the years at the time when it was set at a time where the Equals Right Amendment was trying to come through. So it was it's an alternate timeline, put it that way, and it works because it shows what would have happened if it would go in a slightly different way.
PJ, before we go, I'd just like to recommend a film to you guys, The Black Phone.
The Black
Phone. I
Phone,
saw that a couple of
I'll
days ago, and it was really good.
Well, tomorrow, Ian,
can you drop the link in the private chat, Ian?
It's in the cinema, mate. I can't. I haven't got it. I saw it in the cinema.
It should be on IMDb or anything, but
it will be.
It sounds interesting.
It is really good.
Ian, I've still not watched What Is a Woman. It's on my list for tomorrow night.
I sent it to you, didn't I?
Yes, I've got it.
All right.
And it's on my list for tomorrow night. It was meant to be Sunday, but I had stuff on Sunday, so it's on for tomorrow.
If you guys want it,
I'll be talking about that as well.
Yeah, I think it's in your Twitter thing, isn't it? So if you guys, it's still in my Dropbox. If you want to see it, guys, it's there.
So I'm looking forward to that, and that's for tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
cheers, ears.
Ian, Alex,
cheers, mate.
Colin, and Jim, thank you very much for joining us. Ladies and gents in the chat, thank you for joining us. Join us again on Saturday for Let's Talk Geeky. But for tonight, Bond. James Bond. 007.
Let's do the thinking. Dun, 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 dun,
I love that. I still love that tune. It's the same as like watching Star Wars and hearing the Vader tune. It's dun, 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 dun.
I wish there were more TV
like
shows and film around there that you had. You know the intro to most of Star Trek.
Yeah.
You definitely know the intro to DS9. You definitely know the intro to Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Bond, Star Wars, the original stuff.
Okay.
For me, it's MacGyver. The intro to original MacGyver, that stands out to me.
Hey, PJ, can I have a final line before we go?
Go for it.
I'm on mute forever.
Does it better.
Well, ladies and gents, thanks again. And remember, I'm not old. I'm classic. PJ maybe, and the guy.